What's it about 7 o'clock? Riker? Okay.
Really, you know, because Damien lives in Seattle, so we go back and forth all the time. And it's so much fun.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1. You hear it? Okay. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
He's a schmuck. He is. Freshman, yeah, he's a schmuck.
30 seconds up.
Very good. Gary, how you doing? Good to see you.
2 minutes.
Probably don't know.
2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
How'd you come up with 30? Or 30 for the billboard? Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, well, like I say, when you said the billboard was just starting, you say 30, it's like, what the heck? Because I got it, when you count down, I need to count down too, so the BCSN guy knows when we're coming back, so. Can you do me a favor, make sure you, when you hit 5, give me a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I need you to do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, so he'll know.
Which one's mine?
Right. Welcome back, everybody. We're live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. Gary Sensenstein, along with Riker Thomas, working the board back in the Wolf. And yes, it is the Ed Heinzel Retirement Tour. Started officially yesterday at the press conference over at the IOT Center at St. John's. And today he's officially a retired man. And you know, when I watched the press conference yesterday, all I could think of was Rafiki and the Lion King when he talked about Simba and he said, "It is time." And it sounds like for you it was time, but it wasn't just time yesterday. It sounds like the way you were talking yesterday, the time actually happened last summer for you.
And before I talk about that, I had an omission yesterday. I want
okay.
I want to take care of because I don't think I mentioned Steve Irwin, who is he has been with me from day one and just a great guy. He's always done the behind the scenes work and you know, he was a logistics guy on the state tournament runs. He took care of everything. I didn't have to worry about a thing. And for me to not mention him was a gross oversight, and I feel really bad about it because he's a great guy. I mean, he just sits there and smiles and does the stuff he's supposed to do, and then he comes in and calls out Bob and all this stuff, which is pretty comical. But no, I felt after Vince and Houston I was ready to go, but I knew that would be a challenging year because of the losses we had, and I hate to talk about this like this because I really don't want it to sound like, well, these guys we had today this year we're not that good. They were good, but they were challenged to score the way that we did because we ran everything through Vince and all that kind of thing. So I knew it would be a challenge, and I love Peyton to death, and I wanted to stay with him and Marcus. That all didn't work out, but to stay with Peyton and see him through, and the season was a challenge. But I will tell you this, and I told the kids after the Finley game at home, when we lost in overtime, we beat them down there in overtime. I don't know if I've ever been more proud of the team in terms of just effort, and we were football first guys, which is fine, but challenged to score. But they were in there virtually every game. There were a couple of games got away, but not many. And at the end of the game, we invariably, at a critical time, would miss a shot, and the guy would go down and score. And, we just didn't have the firepower to come back after that. But man, they hung in there and they fought. They battled.
Were you always going to be a coach? When did you discover you're going to be a coach? Was it on the bench at St. Francis, or when did it really hit you that you were going to coach?
I lost my dad when I was 2 years old, so I never knew my dad. He passed away, and I was raised by a tough mom, really, really tough mom. And but I always thought, looking back, that probably the coaches that I had were the male role models in my life, and meant a lot to me. I don't know at the time. I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, but I think that really subtly was going on. And so, I wrote a paper my sophomore year in high school and said that I wanted to be a guidance counselor and basketball coach, and so I peaked out at age 29. So you shoot for the stars, right? But I really wanted to do that. And I remember back in the day, I don't know if Bob remembers this, but back when I played, which is the late '60s, a long time ago, when you were eliminated from the state tournament, you were allowed to practice until the end of the state tournament, kind of keep everything equal because these other teams were practicing and all that kind of thing. And I remember I played for Jim Kubacki at St. Francis. He was a great guy, great coach, great player in his day. And I asked him if I could come in and coach. And I remember I coached rebounding to these guys who were my age, basically a year younger. And then Steve Younger wrote about this winter. I coached Dave Boyce when he was a young whippersnapper at Good Shepherd Church school, and I was just a college kid at the time, and I wanted to get into coaching. I was finishing college and called all the schools that I knew. St. John's was in the middle of nowhere at the time. It was I was an East Side boy. It was way out in nowhere land. There was nothing around it, and the guy told me, he goes, Tim Smith has a B team, freshman team. He's often looking for a coach. And I called Tim, and we made the connection. And the next year I was a JV coach because the teacher, John Smith, left the educational field and was an English teacher, and I moved in, and 5 years later became head coach.
Was there someone in particular? Was it the coach at St. Francis, or someone in particular that you wanted to style yourself after? How'd you?
I really admired Bob Nichols, and I should have mentioned that yesterday as well. The first thing I did was go over and talk to Bob and ask him some things about, because we were going to go a total different direction from what we had done under Tim, and so I just asked him, and he counseled me, and so we took off from there. But Bob Nichols was a great guy, and then Dean Smith, Bob Knight, those kind of guys.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your first season, and I'm sure that's still fresh in your mind, right? Hey,
I remember it.
There you go. We're live from the sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. Northview's next. Northview beat Whitmer yesterday 7-1. And welcome back, everybody. We're live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. The Ed Heinzel retirement tour continues, and we were talking in the break about that very first season at St. John's, and it was not exactly a shining moment for you, was it?
No, it was pretty grim. Carl Wagner, who's sitting over there, went through it with me, and it was memorable on a lot of levels, but you know what it did? It taught me everything I needed to know about loyalty and about the importance of talent. We had good players, but they were young, and I think we played one senior, Mike Ryan, who was a good player, solid guy. But Tim had played, and justifiably, all seniors the year before. So we had literally, we had no one with any varsity experience. And we have a young coach who doesn't, we might have been able to, with experience, maybe eked out a win or two or three, but no more. I mean, we really struggled. We had a great lead against Northview, I remember, and they cranked up the press and we turned it over. But we had good sophomores playing, and the next year we went 17-4, won the first city championship, and I became a genius overnight. So, I learned right away how that goes. But I felt bad for those guys. We had Tim had a pretty good tradition, 14, 15 wins a year typically, and the expectation isn't exactly what it is now, but it was substantial. And I'll tell you, man, we went 0-8. I didn't know if we'd ever win. Carl's laughing. We went to Stritch and we won 52-50, and man, by the end of the year we were pretty good. We weren't beating a lot of people. We only went 4-15, but we were a lot better, and we were beating people and playing people tough. But we played Whitmer in the tournament, and we got whacked pretty good.
Talk about some of the players. You were to put a starting five together. 40 years, the top 10.
Oh man! You know what? I had a bunch of stuff I was going to bring in, material. Well, you got certainly Shane and Jay and Brian Roberts, and God, they made me look like a good coach. What an amazing thing. I mentioned BJ. I went to Zach Hilson's wedding the other day. He was terrific. John Floyd, Sean Coleman, Denny Amrine, and I always called him Everyman. He was 6-footish, blonde hair, average looking guy, but what a beast. I mean, he was so tough. And he transferred from St. Francis, and every time he played St. Francis, he would just stick him. When he was over there, they told him, "Don't shoot, just pass the ball." I said, "Man, dude, you can shoot the ball." And he'd put a dagger in him every time. Oh my goodness, I'm missing guys. That's why I wish I had the sheet in front of me. But I would hesitate to pick out. Vince Williams. These guys were great. I will tell you this: Shane was the one guy that I felt if we needed a basket anytime we could get it because he could score inside, outside, and he was just mean as a son of a gun. He was a tough hombre, and Jay was the same way. I mean, Jay as a freshman played some varsity, and we played Scott, who won the state championship that year, and we were having a heck of a time scoring. Jay put Jay in, he scored the last 5 points of the game as a freshman. He was a competitive guy. Nothing like competitors. You know, I mean, they would cut your heart. Nice guy. Eddie Zimke, who is, you know, I mean, nice, cherubic looking guy, and man, I tell you, he would just cut your heart out to beat you. And a great guy off the floor. You know, I coached a guy in football named B.J. Kelly when I pretended to be a football coach, and B.J. was just a beast. I mean, he was so tough. He walked on at Miami in Oxford and played there. Nicest guy off the field. You know, and those are the great guys.
Any one particular team, I mean, that's the great 6 got back to.
Well, you know, to some degree, you cherish them all. I mean, this team this year, I mean, we were 0-3, 1-5, and I thought, holy smoke, what is this going to be, a 4-15? And they pulled it together. We had some teams that had heartbreak that I felt bad for. The 0-2 team that went undefeated, and then, you know, Brandon got the mono. Because I think we could have won the state that year. I think we were good enough. We had tremendous depth. We had height, we had quickness, we had speed, we had shooting, we had a little bit of everything. When Mark Loving and Austin Gardner's senior year, when Austin went down with the ankle. I mean, 10 minutes to go in practice district, and he just ripped his ankle. I heard this scream, and I thought, oh my goodness gracious, because Austin became a great player. When he was a freshman, he was kind of crafty. He'd shoot floaters, and you know, he had some moxie about him for a freshman. I'm telling you, by his senior year, he was an absolute beast. He was injury prone. He's hurt all the time. But what a great player. What a great attitude.
Of all the guys you've had, is Austin the most likely guy to be a coach down the road?
I wouldn't say the most, but he certainly was a guy. You know, I mean, and we've texted over the last 24 hours, obviously. Yeah, it didn't surprise me at all that he would be a coach. I tell you, Zimke was a great story, man. We were doing a camp, and so the players are coaching kids. The kids love that stuff, you know. And I was in folding up T-shirts and dividing them up for the teams. All the stuff you do as a camp director. And Eddie was out imploring his guys, pouring his heart out, trying to get these guys to play harder and stuff like that. It was beautiful to hear. But no, Austin being a coach does not surprise me. So neither does Mike Shaw.
You know what, we're going to give you a quick break. We've got a couple of 8th graders coming in. We're going to talk about their 8th grade projects, Zane Zeider and Amit Toussé. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. back, everybody. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. The Ed Heinz retirement tour continues, but for now, we're going to let Ed take a break, mingle with the crowd, talk to Carl Wagner and other people that are here today. For the moment, we're going to talk to Zane Zeider and Amit Tusay, 8th grade projects, and let me read what they're talking about, Guy. Your 8th grade project, a cumulative 4-member group assignment, spanning the 2nd semester and culminating in a 15-minute presentation to the school. Aspects include writing a 3-page research paper, performing an action project that serves the community, creating a video documentary of the entire process that also includes personal interviews of professionals in their topic, and the presentation. Students learn and foster research and essay writing skills, interviewing, video editing, networking, volunteering, creative thinking, group and time management, and public speaking. Zane Zeider's group topic was genetic diseases and athletes. Each group member researched a specific genetic disease and its impact on a well-known athlete. Zane's individual topic was Marfan syndrome, and the athlete he focused on was the basketball player Isaiah Austin of Baylor. Amit Tusay's group topic, teenage health and nutrition. Amit focused on understanding nutritional labels and what an ideal diet for a growing active teenager should look like. Good to have Zane and Amit in the house. And Zane, I'll talk to you first. How'd you end up with Isaiah Austin?
I was just looking through different athletes, and I just came across him. I thought Michael Phelps would be a good one, but then I found out with them genetic counselors at Flower Hospital in Slovenia, and they said that he actually didn't have Marfan syndrome. So I was just researching athletes who had Marfan, and Isaiah Austin was probably the most famous one, so I just chose him.
What is Marfan syndrome?
It's a connective tissue disorder. It's like when your limbs are like really long, and you most likely get heart problems, eye problems. That's about it.
When I look at a person unusually tall or his fingers unusually long, describe what that person would look like.
A lot taller than usual, a lot longer limbs, everything. Usually they tend to wear glasses or contacts. Their eyes are like crossed out sometimes.
And then how'd you end up with teenage health and nutrition?
My mom suggested it to me actually. So I found teenage health and nutrition because my group suggested it. I thought it was something new that I should probably learn because I'm becoming a teenager. I might as well find out a little more information about how I can just maintain my health properly.
What's your best advice for teenagers?
You can, everything that you're eating, like cookies, just like Coke and all of those like sugary foods, just maintain it. You can still eat all of that. You can still drink sugary drinks. You can eat sugary foods. Just maintain the amount of stuff that you eat and drink.
How much time do you have to put in this project?
I spent about 3 months in this project. At the beginning of the semester, we spent about 2 months just brainstorming, and then the 3 months we did our action project.
Give me an idea what that presentation was like for you.
It was scary, actually.
In what way? Just the task of doing it, or the people watching you? Describe that a little bit.
The people watching me, but if you just practice, I practiced enough, so it didn't really feel as scary.
Did you practice as well, sir?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when dry runs in front of our teachers, so they gave us what we needed to work on. So it was when we went up there, it was pretty easy. It was just focusing on it.
Give me an idea what the presentation was like. Are you on a stage or in front of a big group? To describe that.
Yeah, so we're in the McQuaid Theater at St. John's. It's just 15 minutes in front of. It was just in front of the 8th grade when we did it, but there's some presentations in front of the whole academy, so that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
The video. Who puts the video together?
I mean, it's our whole group together. And some people are better with technology than others, so I'm not the best. So let's see.
How about for you?
Again, it was a group, so when we went together, we decided how the video was going to be presented, and I was the only person in the group with like the video editing skills, so I did.
What did you think you got out of it?
I feel like I got out of the basic understanding, of course, of teenage health and teenage nutrition, and just some video skills. video editing skills.
Zane, for you, what do you think you learned from Marfan syndrome and in your project in general?
Just in my project in general, I'd say time management and communication are key for sure, because we tended to procrastinate a little bit on our projects and just not communicate as well as we should. So if we did that better, it would not be as stressful, I would say, as it could have been.
Guys, great to be both of you. When we come back, Coach Heinzel returns. He talks about his state Final Four teams from 93, 96, 3, 4, 06, and 09. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. Everybody, we're live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. The Ed Heinzel retirement tour continues. We're bringing him back, and Bob Ronay has in your little sheet here, Ed, talking about your state Final Four teams, but not even just your state Final Four teams, some of the guys that maybe probably could have been there as well.
Yeah, well, we talked about a couple of them already. 02 and 13 team, both. We're certainly capable of making it. We've had some other ones that were pretty good too. But you know, the state runs are. I've told kids that the focus and concentration that is needed to do that is otherworldly. I mean, they reach points that the kids never knew they could get to, and the focus and the lack of distractions and all that kind of thing is tremendous. The team that went in 09 is a team that had to overcome a lot of distractions. I talked to actually FaceTime Tim Kennard, who's one of the all-time favorites. Man, he's crazy. He's so funny. And he was on that team, and I mean, they had all kinds of distractions, you know, a lot of internal things, but for them to make it, I thought, is the one time where I would attribute coaching to really helping facilitate it, because they were good players, but they had lots on the plate.
Probably the one team probably everybody expected to win, B.J. Raymond, Brian Roberts, Zach Hilsman. And you touched on in the press conference yesterday about that semifinal game with Brookhaven, and everybody thought, you know, the game was, you know, it was over then. And you talked about the kid, but I got to tell you, I was there covering it for Channel 11 when I was there. It wasn't just your kids. The whole sense in the building was that was the championship game.
I begged them. I begged. I could have written the script, and the other problem we had with our particular opponent, first of all, if it had been reversed, if we had Hamilton and then Brookhaven, I think we would have won. But they're just, Hamilton proved, I mean, it just wasn't respected well enough by these guys. But they were a very controlled team. Now, if you had a shot clock to beat, but they had a very controlled system. They got up on us early. They had 5 guys, they had a big guy, about 6'6", that could handle the ball, not like a point guard, but against his matchup, he was okay, you know, and they just moved the ball, moved bodies, milked the clock, and you know, all of a sudden we're down, I don't know, maybe double digits, I think, in the fourth, and we make this big run and get within 3, but too little, too late. Yeah, I always said there should be an investigation as to how we could have those 3 quality players now in this station, because they were fabulous players, great kids, and went on to do great things.
Which are the biggest changes you've seen in 4 decades? That's what I've admired about you. You've been able to adapt to your style. And what's some of the biggest changes you've seen?
Well, I mentioned yesterday in the press conference, the physicality of the game is really, much greater. And back when I played, forever ago, it was very, very good. When I started coaching, the little contact was all. I mean, you know, you will touch on the perimeter. Now, you know, now you got to have 2 hands on them. Coach, I attribute to Kevin McHale and those guys. You know, they started just weighing on each other, and it trickled down to us, and what they allow some stuff to go on around the basket, and then a little touch foul away from that. I mean, it's really tough to officiate. But the whole physicality of the game has changed. The 3-point shot has changed the game. Well, by and large, for the better. Ed Mott was over around here somewhere, and Carl was on staff and played. And I always said if the 3-point line had been available at the time, we would have never gotten Eddie inside that 3-point line. He'd have lifted behind. We try to get him to come off the dribble and all that kind of thing. 3-point line, and then. I think kids are more fragile right now. I think it's because of the society in general and the environment. I'll give you an example. I think LeBron James and Michael Jordan are an interesting study, and I think Michael's better. Michael's just a dude. I mean, he would cut your heart. And LeBron is great physical talent, great talent, but I think there's that awareness of, and it goes back to social media and stuff like that. And he just, he's got to play a little bit to people, the crowd or whatever. And they get that little diva thing going, and I think it hurts him a bit as a player. Now, we don't have that to that degree, but kids are distracted, and it's tough. I walk in the gym, and the guys are on their phones, waiting for practice. They're on their phones, and some of our coaches are. Put those daggone things away. The game's a great game. I always said, we want to play it like ballet, move, pass, and reward the passer as a shooter, scorer, and then it could be just a nightmare.
What do you miss the most about St. John's?
Because
everybody talks about the thing I've been amazed over the years, not just the athletes, especially basketball players that come back. It's the non-athletes. I get stuff all the time. The things we run the last couple of years of people never play a sport there. They'll come back and say, "You touched my life." So
yeah, I've had some incredible. I had over 60, 70 plus texts in the last 24 hours. I got back home, and people say things that you had no idea that you were impacting them.
I had a guy who was a really a good player, not a great player, but a good player at Central Catholic. Texted me. I flabbergasted that he texted. I was really touched by it. And I cautioned the coaches and educators in general. You got to be aware that the kids are listening, and they never let you know. It's like kids, they'll never tell you. I haven't been a lot today. But years later, and actually over the years, I've seen that because of things I've said to them. They would quote it in the paper as saying exactly the same kind of thing that we talked about. So, and I don't think it's brainwashing, but it's just they internalize, they listen. So you do have to be careful. But I'll be around St. John's. I'm not far away, and I want to see games. I'll do that discreetly. I'm kind of excited because I want to see. We have like 26 guys playing college basketball, and I can't see them play. We have like the coaches, so I'm going to get their schedules and figure out a schedule for myself to go out and see these kids play because I enjoy coaching them. The thing I miss is the relationship with players, and I'm not buddy with them, but I think, and certainly the feedback I've gotten, they know I care about them. That's really important. If the kids know that you care about them, they'll put up with a lot of nonsense. I was with Ryan Card on Charlotte. He told some stories. Like, oh man, I don't remember that. He said that? He goes, oh yeah. And I don't doubt him. But again, if they know you love them and you respect them and you want to they'll do a lot for it.
You were really emotional yesterday. The only time you really broke yesterday was when you were talking about the Zach Hillsman wedding. Why did that mean so much to you, do you think?
It's something that happens when you coach for a while, or these kids have been out for a while, come back, and it was just really, really awesome to see him get married, Notre Dame and Basilica. Just a great kid. Lost his father, so we had that commonality of loss of a loved one, and I was flattered that he invited me, and humbled by being there and our conversation that he and I shared.
Tell you what, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, did you ever think about leaving SJJ? And Bob had done, did you ever think about coaching at college? We'll talk about that when we come back. We are live from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. from Sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf. I'm Gary Sensenstein with Riker Thomas working the board back at the Wolf. Joining me tonight, and I'm sure you've heard his voice once in a while, is Mr. Bob Ronay. And of course, the Ed Heinzel Tour continues. And we're talking about, did you ever think about leaving SJJ? I think you mentioned 1983. What were the events during that time that made you think about
Well,
leaving?
I was going to leave. I just was going to get out of coaching and just stay as athletic director. And, you know, I mean, Bob has, you know, athletic director is a full-time job. So all he does, he's got 900 people working for him. He kicks back and gets paid like 16 times more than I got paid. Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, in my day, was AD, teacher, coach, all that stuff. But anyway, no, I just thought it was a stretch. I always asked Cheryl periodically if she wanted me to get out because I was gone a lot. When I was there, I thought I was pretty good about being there, but she always said, hey, you know, you're happy and you know it's a great place and all that kind of thing. But so I was thinking after a few years. In fact, I talked to Carl, you know, about I'm thinking about getting out, and I think he would be the heir apparent, all things being equal. But then it was Dom Uhart was a senior, and we didn't have a spectacular year. I think we won 14 games, maybe 14-6, something like that. But I don't know what happened with Dom's character. I love the guy, but I just felt this connection on a personal level with the players, not just Dom, but other guys too. And I thought, man, this is really cool. This is beyond winning XOs, whatever. It's really I don't want to say I felt impactful. Not that never really occurred to me, but I just enjoyed the relationship and relationships with those kids. And after that, it never really occurred to me to leave.
Did you ever think about the college level? I'm surprised. I was always told UT had approached you.
No, I've never heard from anybody from any college. And I think after I was there for a long time, I think people said, well, he's just there, and I don't think anybody would approach anyway. There was one opening that I thought eons ago. I can't remember who it was or what it was, but my feeling is that the high school experience is one where you really impact formation of guys. And college is, I mean, we do some babysitting in high school, especially when we go on these road trips. I get a kick out of people, you go to San Diego, man, how was it, man? You better have fun. I said, you kidding me? We're playing O'Neill's kid. I'm responsible for 12, 13 kids. No, it wasn't fun. No. But I really felt that the high school is the formation of kids. It was never about money. It was about trying to help young people, young men, young fellas to become real young men. And so the college thing to me was much more, all right, you gotta win, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And, we wanted to win and we won, but college never appealed to me. I admire the guys that do it, I really admire? I really admire the guys who, in the City League years ago, as great as the City League was, there were certain schools that really, really struggled. And there were some, great coaches there. And I'll throw a name out, Kim McCluskey. I thought he was a fabulous coach. And the one year he had two guards and a big guy who was pretty good. We played with Carter and those guys. We only lost like 3 games all year, like 20-3. And we went over there. They almost beat us, and because he had he had better players, but Kim every year put in yeoman's work and did a great job. I respect the heck out of that.
Back in the City League days, Ben Williams and Scott probably had to be some of your best matchups of all time. That comeback in the fourth quarter in that City League title, probably one of your most memorable games.
Oh yeah, that was. But I'll tell you what people don't know is that we played at East Liverpool in a Christmas tournament against, and one of our opponents was Xavier out of Cincinnati, a fellow Jesuit school, and we were in a similar situation, not quite that drastic, but we were down a bunch, late in the game, and we came back and won. And I always felt that experience taught those guys, because I remember telling the guys as that Scott game was going on, guys, we have time. We got to stop the clock, and we got the clock stopped. Some of it with us, some of it with Scott, and we got the clock stopped and made up point. I mean, Brian Roberts, as a sophomore, got drilled behind the arc and just stood up there and made 3 free throws like it was nothing. Floyd got knocked on a layup, got knocked into the basket support. Now his family would tell you he was a drama king, queen, whatever that night. But he was hurting, and he hit the 2 free throws. So we were able to get the clock stopped and got points, and that was critical. That was great. That was a fabulous game. But I always said, let me go back here and make sure I get the sequence right here. Boston were the champs, and Detroit got them. Detroit caught up with them with Isaiah and those guys. And then Michael and those guys came along with the Bulls. And all those teams that were coming up learned how to win from the better team. I was at the game the night that the Bulls beat the Pistons, and Isaiah and those guys walked out. John Savage had taken me to that game. It was amazing. But those teams all learned how to win, and I really believe Scott taught us how to win. In that this is the blueprint. You got to be tough. You got to be disciplined, and you just have to stay really focused through the good and the bad times. And Ben and his teams taught us that. And when I came in, we were like 1-18 against Scott, and we never got to 500. We got close. But we got better players, but they taught us a lot.
The one thing you have to be looking forward to, and you touched on it yesterday as well, Thanksgivings, Christmases, you're going to be able to see the families nowadays.
Yeah, I just felt bad, It wasn't so bad with just my children. I say that advisedly because they're probably listening. But when the grandkids came along, and okay, well, so what's your schedule? So, well, I got practice in the morning, and it wasn't restrictive exactly, but I just felt that those kids need me. And there's no grandma, right? I mean, that's part of it, right? There's no grandma. I'm it. Now they have the other side of the family and so forth, and they're great people. But from my side, I felt that, without Cheryl and being the guy that, had to do both things, that contributed to the clarity I have. I mean, I mentioned in the press release, I use the word confluence. I thought it was a pretty doggone good word. But that was part of it, only part of it. There are a ton of things, and I just need to, it's time. When it's time, it was time when I was teaching, it was time when I was counseling, it was time as AD. God bless God for being AD, because that is the most thankless job in the building. It's just tough, and all you hear are the 999 things go right and one thing goes wrong. So I admire him, and he's been a great support. I appreciate him.
The Sioux League. What do you see the difference between the Sioux League and the track?
Well, travel. Now, I thought there was great, and the track is fine, but I thought the value in the City League, because we had very few problems. A lot of that had to do with Ed Scrutchins just being a good boss to the league and being very fair to the Catholic and public schools alike. And that was a tough position because, the public and private school, conflict. But Ed was very, very fair, but I thought it brought the community, the Toledo community together. And black, white, inner city suburbans, across the spectrum in a healthy competition. I mean, as many games as we had some incredibly competitive games with Libby and Scott and other schools, Rogers, everybody. There was never, ever, ever an on-the-court problem. Never. There was a healthy respect, and I think it brought the community closer together. I think it was a a league that everybody took pride in. And, you know, everybody wanted his or her school to win. But at the end of the day, you know, we as Catholic schools, the public schools, we saluted the winners and you know, moved on. So I don't think you can underestimate the value of the Toledo City League as it was in the old days. And not that the track is bad, and we've got some healthy rivalries, including out-of-town ones with Lima. I think that's a good thing. But there was something about the community of Toledo, and you know, back in the day, man, I mean, Jimmy played, and I'll tell you what, UT was sold out.
Opposing players. We talk about opposing teams. That's something opposing players love doing.
Again, I had a nice sheet. If I go in my car, I got 2 minutes. The best player we ever played against, we played some good straight ones, is Jimmy. I mean, our homegrown Jim Jackson was the best player. But we played against Battier and Detroit Country Day. We beat them. Toby Bailey was out of Loyola, California, fellow Jesuit school. We played them in the Beach Ball Classic, beat them the next year. Toby, as a freshman, led UCLA to the national championship. O'Neill's son, one of probably the best team we ever played was Dunbar out of Washington, D.C. We played them at the Kingdom of the Sun tournament in Ocala, Florida. We went down there like 3 times, I think. And the first time we went down there, we played these guys, and they had a point guard was Romeo Roach, whose shorts went down to his ankles. But I think he was a McDonald's guy. Michael Smith, who played in the pros, was now on TV. I know, doing some great stuff with that. And they had 2 or 3 other guys that played big-time Division I ball. And then Lakewood St. Ed's with Lepore and Logan and Clancy and those guys. What's his name? Oh, man, I can't remember. But they were really, really, those were some of the great teams. And Shaquille Sutton, he played against them out at San Diego a year ago. And, you know, Shaquille's this big, strong guy. This guy was 6'11" and willowy and could just shoot. I mean, the ball didn't move through the net. And Vinny actually outplayed him overall. So there are other guys. There are a ton of guys that the experiences. I'm going to sell my book to you, Bob, for $75. You can read all about it.
So what's the name of the book going to be? Have you even thought about a title for this thing?
I came up with the title before anything.
Okay.
Isn't it ironic? Because, and it starts with the fact that I was not going to coach very long, and coached for 40 years. A guy like John Amici comes in town, and I thought for sure he'd go to St. Francis because Ray Schreider, a really good guy, and all that, took the lead in his visit, and I thought, oh man, we're never going to get him. We got him. There's a ton of things in there that are really, really ironic, great stuff.
Will it be strictly like a memoir book, or how are you going to write it?
I've got a lot done. It's by chapter, and it's by category kind of thing. So, you know, I have an introduction and.
You're going to have a chapter in the
No, but I'm going to have some interesting chapters. I guarantee you that.
Will it be, like you brought it up yesterday, is it going to be a chapter or at least a couple paragraphs on social media? Because you touched on it yesterday, and you think that kids nowadays, it's banging on them way too much.
Well, you know, there was that tragedy on the east side, and it was social media. People bullying people. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know what I'd do with my kids, but I'll tell you right now, they'd have their phones. I'd have control of their phones. I'm going to tell you that right now. But no, there was a guy named Bob Bay who was our next door neighbor up at the lake, and they lived in Elmore, Ohio. And there are two things I'm eternally grateful for. I mean, I think he's long past. He's a great guy. He had 2 daughters, so you know, I was just a little kid. And he kind of befriended me. And he introduced me to ice cream sandwiches, which is fabulous. And he took me to a basketball game. I don't know how good these guys were. They played on a stage, and we were in, like an auditorium situation. And I was just mesmerized by the game. Mesmerized. I was probably 8 years old. And I said, man, that's cool stuff. And here I am. I haven't grown much over the years. If you look at my goals of being a counselor and coach, and being mesmerized at age 8. That's 60 years ago. You've come a long way.
What's the one thing you're going to remember from St. John's? If there's one thing that stands out for you?
The people, you know, and one of the reasons I'll come back is that the adult, you know, like Bob and people like Sue Matuzak and a lot of teachers, Kim Paul, people, Phil Skeldon, you know, I start naming people, I'll leave people out and get in trouble, but people out, you know, you want to keep in contact with. And then, you know, the players that I've started with, you know, I'll be curious to see how they do. But the people, it's, you know, it's a people business. I think everything is, actually. And if you have people skills, you're going to do a lot better than if you don't.
You know, as always, there's usually a Chick-fil-A athlete and teacher of the week. And of course, Bob already has one person in mind. He wants to let you know.
Well, you know my assistant, we named the new head coach.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, he handed me this thing about our strength coach being the, he may not last real long with people like this, but the athlete of the week is Aiden Williams, sophomore tennis player, won first singles at the track championship and was named the tennis player of the year in Three Rivers Athletic Conference. And our faculty administrator person of the week is our own coach Ed Heinzel.
Thank you very much.
40 years.
Thank you.
And everything he's done. I tell you.
There's a big check. You have a big check you're going to give me right now?
No,
gift card.
Instead of
Gift
one
card.
Instead of one card, you get 2 cards.
Ooh.
Yeah, if the Chick-fil-A cow comes around the corner, he's got a gift card for you.
Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.
Before we leave, let's touch on the guy who's going to take over for you, Mike Shaw.
Yeah, Mike. You know, I knew Mike. I'll tell you, we were at the. Man, he remember this. But we were at the Southwest Y. I can't remember why we were there, but Cheryl and I were there with the two, you know, with Kim and Ted, and we were waiting for something. And Mike had a ball in his hand. He's just a little squirt, you know. He didn't grow till much, you know, pretty late. You know, he was just a little fella for a long time. And he's dribbling the ball between his legs, and he's just putting on. He looked like Steph Curry. You know, I wanted to ask him for an autograph, but I did. We started. We played what they called the Rogers League, which was against public schools, and I coached him and Ted and Andrew Taylor and Blake Howden and all those guys, and so I that's when I met him, and. You know, he's been a great kid, and he's been part of our team for 4 years, and a program for 4 years, and you know, we were glad to have him back as a coach. He does not surprise me at all being a coach. He was a student of the game. He understands the game. You know, everybody. I mean, after 40 years, I was making mistakes this year, so there'll be some bumps in the road for him, but that's just part of the deal. It just takes time to deal with certain things, but he'll do fine.
This is where we should have a Sinatra song. I did it my way, because I tell you, it's been a pleasure and a privilege, and I wholeheartedly mean that, because I've enjoyed a short time with you.
I will tell you, I at one point had entertained letting people know that I was going, and asked the crowd at the last home game to stay, and 2 songs I play. My Way and Bruce Springsteen's, I forget the name of the song right now. Jon Stewart played at his last show on his new show. But it's been yeah, it was great, man. Bruce was live in the studio there. I don't think we got him in St. John's gym.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Enjoy your retirement. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Tell you what, we're going to wrap things up from the sidelines and say goodbye. But again, good to see Coach Ed Heinzel tonight. And again, it's going to be the last time we're going to talk to him on the Coaches Show. Next week, another Coaches Show from sidelines. We'll talk about how the baseball team's doing in the tournament. Again, the lacrosse team is playing Westlake as we speak. We're live from sidelines in Maumee. It's the St. John's Jesuit Coaches Show on 107.7 The Wolf.